Yo, what's up, guys? It's Chris Whitaker here, man. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode number 2 of Behind the Kick podcast with my special guest, Sloan. What up, dude? Thank you so much for being on the show today, man.
Thanks for having me.
So, dude, let's talk. What's been going on with you?
I've just been touring with Mike Ryan a lot, and then whenever I'm home from the road, I just do production and other things like that around town. I'm a full-time musician, and that's what I do.
So where are you based out of now?
Dallas, Texas.
Okay, cool, man. So, dude, I mean, let's talk about Mike, man. I haven't got the chance to meet him yet or meet any of y'all yet until today. But, man, I heard y'all got a killer show, dude.
Yeah, it's a 90-minute. We've got an acoustic break in it. A lot of the songs they've got arrangements and hits and everything like that. It sounds a lot bigger than the record, so.
Yeah. You know, and that's something a lot of artists are doing nowadays is beefing up their records, man. Like, how important do you think that is for a band to be able to do that and surround yourself with guys that are able to do that, not just play verbatim like the record, which is important, but also having guys that can kind of put their own touch on it?
I would say paramount. It's definitely, it's one of those things where you can play the record the way it is all day long and it's super cool, but the second you revamp it or add something else, it gives the audience a nice flavor. It's like they're here to hear like exactly what they heard, yes.
Yeah.
But if you add something cool, they're like, oh, well, this is actually different. So okay, I'm gonna show up to every single show because it's something cool.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not just gonna sit at home and listen to the records. Yeah. I'm gonna go to the show and see something different and see something new.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really, really necessary.
Yeah, that's cool, man. A lot of guys today who we follow on Instagram and stuff, a lot of the drummers and stuff, man, they are phenomenal at being able to sit there and play the record, and also it's a skill like we just talked about to have both, where you're playing the record but you're also adding your own thing. And I feel like a lot of artists nowadays, they trust that. They're cool with that, because they understand the value of, like you said, the importance of the record versus still keeping the record, but here's it, on some extra sauce. Yeah. As you could say.
Yeah.
So is Mike's stuff, would you say, is that more like country, Americano? How would you describe it?
I would say like country with a little bit of rock infused.
Okay. Yeah.
Just solid songwriting, really good straight ahead. A little bit mid-tempo. I wouldn't say it's necessarily upbeat, but we do fill out the shows and things like that with some different textures. So
yeah, that's awesome, dude. So you said you're recording, man, at the house, man. What are you doing with that?
Man, actually, I don't even really record out of my own house very often. I just do. So I've got a friend of mine named Patrick Smith, a really good friend of mine.
Shout out to Patrick.
Yeah, man. He plays bass, and me and him have worked kind of like a duo. We've produced 2 or 3 different records, and now we're working on a couple right now. And we go to, I have a rehearsal space, we work through everything, and then we get an engineer and a studio, and we always just do all the recordings out of that.
Yeah.
And, the artist pays us for it, and then we talk to them about development and maybe even marketing and other things like that.
Yeah, man, having your hands in everything. I like it, dude.
Yeah.
That's you have to have these days now.
You have to. You can't just play. I mean, I'd love to just play, but
yeah, it's funny, man, how we emphasize that on the last episode, man, with our buddy Lamar Merchant, man, when we were talking about, he had a day job, he was in finance.
Yeah.
And now he's got this awesome clothing brand, Drummers versus Everybody. Y'all, shameless plug, my man Lamar Merchant, Drummers versus Everybody.
Fantastic brand, by the way.
You seen it?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. So he, hooked it up with the hoodies and stuff, man. But that's something we were talking about is having your hand in everything, because how important that is nowadays. You can't just play drums, and the fact that you're producing and touring, and doing family stuff. You wear a lot of hats, man.
Yeah, I mean you have to. Yeah, it's what you got to do. We're doing a lot of different rock. He's definitely more of a rock player. I would say Third Eye Blind, that 90s stuff.
Yeah. Not
quite grunge, but there's a little bit of classic rock influence as well. His favorite band is Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the artists that come through that he even brings to me sometimes, it's okay, this is the kind of vein that we're going in. We're working with Nick Lee, part of the Texas Gentlemen.
Okay, I've heard that name before. Yeah.
Yeah, killer guitar player, singer, producer, everything under the sun.
That's cool, man. So what would you say some of the differences are between having to transition from playing live with Mike and then going in the studio and recording a record?
Man, biggest thing is just managing your energy. When you're live, you can really let loose, you can open the floodgates, you can do everything like that. But in the studio, you really have to be calculated and think, every single part that I play in this moment is going to be immortal. It's going to sit on this record forever. And so you have to do things that are really specific. You know, you have to write out parts a lot more. You have to really think about it. And you have to think about what kind of message you're giving to the person listening to that song in their car, on the headphones, whatever. So I would say, like, definitely less. You play less on records, way less. Yeah.
Would you say that's a skill you had to kind of develop, was to play less? You know, everybody talked about, oh, less is more, but like, I don't think people talk about why it's more. You know, I don't think they talk about, oh, here's the correlation between what makes a record and what makes a live performance. And like you talked about playing less, you know, but when did you get to that point where you really felt like you understood that?
Well, you know, for a long time, I wanted to be like Neil Peart or something like that, where I played all these crazy fills and stuff. But then I started looking at music like a layman, quote unquote, you know, someone who doesn't ever play music, right? Or a normal everyday person that has never played an instrument or anything like that. Why do they listen to songs? They listen to songs because they resonate with you. They resonate with you, with lyrics, the music sounds cool. They're not sitting there saying, wow, that fill was really cool. You know, honestly, I just kind of fell into it. I started really becoming passionate about letting the song breathe for what it is. Like, okay, Continuum, John Mayer.
Yeah,
like that,
dude. Love that record, bro.
That record. There's favorite song on that whole record is I Don't Trust Myself with Lovin' You.
Yes.
And what does Steve Jordan do the whole time? Just the whole time.
Yeah, there's no fills. There's no crash cymbals. There's no nothing in that
like
song.
Barely. And there's like one little doom, 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 and that's it. It's like that became so infectious to me. You know, Chad Smith is the same way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that I just fell in love with just staying in the groove. Also, it's easier if you really think about it. Like, you don't have to think about calculating a fill that's going to take up 2.5 beats, and then you got to, you know, use the right strokes in this moment, and this pattern requires this. If you just hold down the groove and sit in it, it feels better for everybody. The audience loves it. I love it. And also it pays more. You know, fills are for thrills, but grooves pay the bills. It's like a huge motto I carry with me.
Dude, I like that, bro.
That's what it is.
You gotta put that on a shirt.
Yeah, you guys should add it. You know, a little quote, you know.
Yeah, man.
That'd be cool.
That's cool, dude. Man, you know, it's funny to hear that, because I ask all my friends that, hey, man, you know, what makes a record versus a live performance? And the fact that you said that, like, that's so true, man. You know, there's a lot of guys out there who have great chops.
Yeah.
You know, chops for days, which is awesome. But you say, hey, man, put on a med at 35 BPMs and play in it. Oh, they're all over the place, dude. And that's something I work on. You know, I teach at Guitar Center, and I teach my kids that, and they're like, this is stupid, Mr. Chris. I hate this, yada, yada, yada. But then 2 weeks later, they're like, man, I played at my church, da, 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 and, you know, he said that I can play in my main service now. And I'm like,
wow, look at that. People hire you when you play less. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. And, you know, there's guys who've made a living, pro drummers who made it, like you said, Chad Smith, Steve Jordan, you know, Questlove, all those cats. Yeah, he's freaking nasty.
Yeah.
But they've made a living just playing drum fills. If there's, Questlove was talking about somewhere, he said, man, I don't chop because I don't know how to.
Yeah.
That's what he said. That's what he said. And, you know, chops aren't, to me, the word chopping isn't just all that stuff. It's chops is your skill on the drum.
Yeah.
And you having chops, whether you're playing in the pocket or other people call chops, like we talked about, just playing all over the record, all over the song, which is great. You know, that's cool too. But man, I always, like you said, I always wanted to be a player who could do both. But I find myself more now playing less, and like you said, enjoying it more.
Absolutely.
And making everybody else feel good. So let's piggyback off of that, man. What do you feel like is a drummer's job?
Ooh, just to hold it down. Honestly.
Yeah.
Everybody else is playing off of you.
Yeah.
So make it easy for them. You know, you can add cool stuff here and there, but I mean, like, what's a really big commercially successful band? Like, okay, let's say the Beatles, just to give a generic answer. Ringo
Yeah.
technically is not the greatest drummer in the world.
No.
But man, could he write the perfect part for every one of those songs?
Yeah,
I'm
dude.
serious. Like,
yeah.
And he had limitations. I've even used that as like an excuse to not get crazy chops. It's like if you have those limitations, you won't go for those really risky fills that'll throw people off. You know, it's like...
So speaking of that, limitations, man, do you find yourself bringing less of like gear-wise to certain gigs than others?
Oh yeah, for sure.
You do? Yeah.
And honestly, like most of the time, I don't have any more than 2 toms. Sometimes I'll bring 3, but...
You do 2 up, 2 down?
I've done that before.
Or 1 up, 2 down?
Most of the time, yeah, it's 1 up, 2 down.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, if I had like a Yamaha kit, like a Yamaha recording custom, I would do 2 up, 2 down for sure. If I had like an old Ludwig, same thing. But man, honestly, for every gig I've ever played, 1 up, 1 down is like all you need. It's the amount of voices that you need, 1 snare. Most of the time you can get away with like a crashable ride and then a crash and then a hi-hat, and that's it. You can get away with that. I use 2 crashes though for this gig just because it's more applicable.
Yeah.
Man, less is more on that too.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, who wants to set up like 100 freaking pieces of equipment and
Yeah.
you're loading in all this, you got to load up your truck, you know. Every piece of gear you take.
Hashtag drummers are lazy, right?
Yeah, honestly. Make your life easier.
Let's start a hashtag. Hashtag drummers are lazy.
Yeah, I mean guitarists, they walk up with a pedal board and a guitar.
Yeah.
And because we use DI. So like they don't even have an amp anymore. It's like
no.
make my life easier.
Just plug in my pedal board. Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna start a bunch of hate comments on my channel.
Yeah.
No, man, but you know, it's funny you say that because I find myself now, you know, I'm in the country scene, I'm doing that stuff, but I'm also doing a lot of Motown stuff.
Nice.
And I find myself bringing my 20-inch bass drum, my 16-inch floor tom, and my snare, and then a crash and a ride, and that's it.
Yep.
And dude, I've had the most fun on that kit than I do on any other kit I bring, as far as like 4 pieces, 5 pieces. Like you don't need more stuff. To me, less stuff is fun because it makes my brain have to think about being creative.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll bring a kick, snare, no tom, and like a crash/ride.
Yeah.
And maybe like a tambourine hooked to my hi-hat or something like that. Dude.
And
man, my brain just like...
It forces you to think outside the box. Like I've done kick, snare, hat for a gig one time. That was it. I used the hi-hat as like a crash. I would open it up and then let it breathe a little bit. And then bring the beat back in.
More technical stuff.
Yeah, and you're just like, it just feels awesome. Because people only care about kick, snare, hat if you really think about it.
Yeah.
You know, that's what they're moving to.
Have you seen that TikTok of that guy where he's like, how the vocalist sets up drums and there's nothing in the room?
Yeah.
He's like, how does the bass player set up? Kick, snare, hat. How does a guitar player set up that wrote all the drums? He's got like a 10-piece drum set.
Yeah. I think that's the Cowboy Drummer, right?
Yeah.
Shout out Cowboy Drummer.
That shout out Cowboy Drummer.
He did he did this one where it was like a reverse hi-hat. He set it up to where like he had a cymbal mounted like this and then he had the hi-hat coming up to it.
What the heck?
It was hilarious. But
that's cool, man. So, did you go to school for music or anything?
I did actually, UNT.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, so you got chopped for days, huh?
Yeah, sort of. I went for about 3 semesters. I dropped out, so I didn't graduate. But
no, dude. How was that experience?
It was wild. The workload is insane.
Heard that.
I was doing classical percussion at the time and playing drum set. And so it was just a lot. I was buried alive. You know, if you want to know the reason why I dropped out, I looked around one day and I was like, well, I don't really want to play marimba for a living, especially because there's not a lot of money in it. I love the guys that do it. They're awesome, but it just wasn't what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I just jumped headfirst into my career.
Yeah.
And started just playing crap gigs and making $100, you know. That's how it is.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a grind, dude. You know, just because you play drum set and just because you can keep a groove doesn't mean you're going to get on a bus the next week, you know?
Not even close. Not even close. You know, some guys get lucky.
Yeah. Man, I did that whole marimba thing. Actually, I'll tell you what, I did have one good experience playing marimba. When I was in high school, man, we did the whole classical percussion stuff, you know, where everybody's on like marimbas and bells and xylophones, and we did my high school one, Call for Tapes and PASIC.
Oh, yeah?
So we did that. We got to play Dottie Dimples with Bob Becker.
Oh, nice.
Dude, that guy, he plays xylophone, but he made me be like, damn, I want to learn that. Man, I don't want to learn that because I hate this, but that's so cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Like he just whipping around on it. And we got to play percussion. I got to play timbales with Lalo Davila.
Oh, very nice.
And man, that was such a cool experience. So shout out to those guys, dude, because that's some stuff, man. But like you said, it's not for everybody, you know. And just because you can play marimba doesn't mean you can play drum set. Just because you can play drum set doesn't mean you can play marimba. There's different, there's different characteristics involved in both, and I respect both, man, because both is, you're still playing an instrument, which is not easy to do at all.
Yeah.
So that's cool, man. So you said you did classical percussion, and I think we were talking earlier before we started filming. You were on drumline, right?
Yeah.
DCI.
Yeah, I marched drum corps at Troopers in 2019.
Man.
I was doing quads.
Yeah, dude. How was that?
Oh, it was good, man. A huge grind. 3 months on the road, living on air mattresses, on gym floors. We would go to a new housing site almost every single day. We traveled across the country. It was incredible.
Did that teach you how to practice? I've heard a lot of guys say that. Man, I didn't know how to practice until I got drum corps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My hands never felt better. 3 months after that tour, still, my hands have never felt that good.
Do you still find yourself going back to some of those exercises to warm up before shows and pads and stuff?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I will say, it's a different technique completely.
Yeah.
It's so restricted because everything has to be uniform.
Here. Yeah.
There's no molar. There's no whip. There's no nothing like that, especially with that camp because it was Paul Rennick. Paul Rennick is anti-whip. It's all wrist. You keep your wrists really low. And it works. It creates a really clean drum line, but it's not how I wanted to play behind the kit.
Yeah. Yeah. But do you find yourself stealing approaches from that in a sense? I know it's completely different. I mean, as far as mindset wise, hey, here's a bunch of music. I got to knock it out. I'm going to stay up and learn it. Because I know they're really strict on that. As far as learning music, they give you a certain amount of time frame, right? Here's 2 or 3 months to learn, this opener, ballad, and the closer, and you got to memorize it. You read it, but then you've got to retain that. And so I find a lot of guys who are my friends who've done drumline professionally and then now touring professionally, they're like, man, maybe not the technique, but that mindset has been instilled in me, so that's why I'm able to practice the way I do.
Oh yeah, always showing up ready. One of the biggest things I remember, Paul was talking about it, Paul Rennick. He was like, well, I have to be able to wake you up at 3 a.m. and you can play a perfect whatever rudiment it is. And that's how ready you have to be at all times. It's that mindset stuck with me a lot. And, no matter what, no matter if I'm really tired or I'm feeling sick or anything, I always strive to play on the same level that I possibly can, the best level that I possibly can.
Yeah. So would you say, you've been touring for a while, man, would you say playing with Mike and being in that, high level Texas environment, as far as what you guys are doing, you guys are doing some great stuff, by the way, but as far as being there, man, would you say that having that, hey, I'm a pro player and I have these other outside things that are going on, but this is my job right now, would you say that mindset has carried you from where you are going forward, is going to continue to do that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting thing. You always have to be, another big philosophy that I carry too, it's your spot to lose. In everything in life. If you're dating somebody, if you're marching drum corps, if you're playing in a touring band, if you're even at a job or something, you're never cemented. Even though you're a long-time member or whatever, you always have to show up and prove yourself in different ways. Challenge yourself, reinvent the wheel kind of thing. So
yeah. That's cool, man. I know a lot of guys who say oh yeah, man, I got this gig, I'm not worried about this. I'm like, but why though, man? You're always replaceable. If you have that mindset, you have to know that there's someone next in line, whether you want them to be there or not.
Yeah. And there's way more than you even want to know. That's why I don't want to think about it, But way more guys waiting to replace you, straight up.
Being where you are now and playing on the level that you play on, would you say that just being a good drummer is enough?
No. It's not enough. You got to be a good drummer. Yeah, cool. Honestly, I would say good drummer isn't even really on the top of the list. You need to be able to hold it down and do the show. But like I said, there are going to be better guys waiting to do it. You have to be a good hang. I would put that as number one. You got to be able to show up. You know, a lot of guys I've heard in previous positions in different bands, like they would show up too drunk, they would get too high, or they would get problematic, they would get angry, they would get sad, they would bring up too many personal problems, they would bring around too many dramatic people. It's like, you got to be a good hang. You got to know when to shut up, frankly. You know, whenever it's like, okay, this thing is bigger than me.
Yeah, that's a motto on our podcast, turning our mouth off and our ears on.
Yep.
And the reason why we stress that is because that's how you're able to take in the most information and just listen to what's going on and take that in and say, okay, I don't know these things, and here's something that doesn't get talked about a lot, but I'm going to soak it up because this guy's taking the time to do that.
Yep. That's the thing. It's always bigger than you. You never know. In every circumstance, something else could be going on. It's not necessarily personal. Just shut up and listen. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
You learn more that way anyway, too.
Yeah. Well, man, this has been Behind the Kick, episode number 2. My man Josh, dude, thank you so much, brother.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir.